Hello, whoever's watching this. Committees extraordinaires everywhere. My name is Elrock617. This is going to be a marathon submission video for the Japanese version of The Adventures of Bayou Billy, also known as Mad City, aka the version of Bayou Billy that a lot of people don't even know exists. I learned the speedrun for Mad City around August of last year, not long after SGDQ. Really enjoyed the run. I picked up most of the tips from a runner out of Finland, I believe, named Taro. Also goes by Rata. He had the world record at the time with a high 16, like a 1650 something, 1654 ish. Found out he knew the game, learned the run, and dropped the time down significantly over the next month or so. Even managing to attract the attention of a couple of other runners, including Mr. R Knight, who currently has the world record at a 1454, and I have a 1511. This is my current PB, recorded last September. The strats were pulled together by a number of different sources, some from Rata himself, some from U.S. runners like Detystinator and Nest Cardinality had a lot to offer from their VODs. And there was even a VOD from a runner from China that had to be rejected because of some, I think there were some allegations regarding other games, but that run was still very useful information, full of very useful information, I should say, sorry, and ported it over to the run we have now and managed to drop the time quite a bit. Managed to be both the first 15 and the first sub 1530, and per some potential event acceptance, I will very seriously consider pushing for world record again. I think having a 1511 is a great time in a game that's only has one sub 15 in it. But there's still plenty of time to save. For example, this run in particular doesn't have my best stage 8, and that stage is kind of important. So, going to go over some of the specifics of the run. I can try and offer some information regarding what I know about what's old and what's new over the past 6 months. I'll do my best. Let's go ahead and fire up. You'll also be hearing my voice in the background. I'll try to talk over that as much as I can. Mind that there is at least one quick wordy dirt at the end, but I think I will go ahead and pause it at that point. So we start off by going to the right. Jump kick is really our only useful offensive tool at this point. You take out those guys quickly. This part's important. We want to keep scrolling right because if we take out that guy first before finishing scrolling, there's actually going to be a third enemy that spawns, so all we do is we just keep going instead. Moving through water is pretty ugly. You're better off jumping than you are walking. Found out later you can actually cross that gap there, the last one that I jumped, so I've been doing that lately, just walking across instead of jumping it. Call it TMNT strat. Also, the soundtrack to this game is amazing, but I think most people already know that. Now we have the stick. Stick is an extremely important tool to have. Getting past that guy is actually a bit of a gate, because one of the first kicks he hits you with is always going to knock you away, and that can knock you to the left and cost you time. We take care of these two guys. Moving on to this section, we have this alcove between the trees. If you go up between these trees there, it prevents a third enemy from spawning. There's another guy in red who would normally spawn, but if you go up between those trees, he just doesn't show up at all. So, free enemy despawn.
What we doing here?
For the scuba guys, we're going to go ahead and take them out with a stick. As mentioned, the stick is the most efficient way of being able to take care of enemies as long as we have them. This is also going to make sure we have access to the gun, which we will need coming up shortly. Gun is very, very powerful, but it does have limited uses because it has limited ammo.
Get the armor.
Going to use it here on the guy with the weapon. Missed the first shot, got the next two. Which is fine because I can just take this guy out with a quick couple jump kicks, grab the gun.
Love the wiggle.
And then now that we're out of ammo, I'm going to try and knock the armor off this guy.
Yo, that pace, though.
At some point, we are also going to obtain armor ourselves, which is both good and bad. I'll explain why later.
Nice.
That's a gator boost, and that's actually really hard to get because the gators have quite random movement through the swamp, and if they don't line up with you perfectly, they're not going to boost you.
Possible sub 2 here, I think.
See, we're jumping all the way across. That's a quick first stage.
Not really close, though.
The majority of the best speed tech in the game is going to be present in the first stage. We'll get to that here a bit later. But the first stage is still a proper introduction to the game, and also significantly shorter than the US version for those of you that have played it and have seen it before.
Not quite sure what
Stage 2, you can play the stage with a zapper, which I will not lie would add a ton of swag to the run, but it's honestly just easier to make sure that you have one peripheral setup, I think. Beazle would probably be really mad at me if you heard me say that, but it's just how it's used to play. So, a couple quick items about the rail shooter stages. First thing we picked up is this vest. I think this is supposed to count as body armor, but as long as we have it, we're invincible to gunfire. We just can't be hit by it, so there's no reason not to have it. Just prevents another danger element. Picking up extra ammo generally isn't worth it, not in this stage. For these segments that stop, all you have to do is kill the enemies as soon as they hit the ground. Quick thing to note about ammo, you kind of have to treat it like Nimpo and Ninja Gaiden, because ammo does count down at the end of a stage, so the less ammo you have, the better off you are. But there's two important things to note. One, you can't drain ammo unless you miss a shot. If you hit your target, ammo will not drain. Like, say there I have 120 bullets and I shot and missed twice there. Didn't lose any ammo. Other thing to note, if you hit 0 bullets, it kills you. Like, you actually lose a life from that. You lose all your items that you would have for the platforming stages, and it's not good. You have to make sure that you don't take a death. And of course, you're going to lose time because you have to return back to a checkpoint in a given stage. You know, it's no bueno. Item you saw there was the Hourglass. Hourglass renders our gun unable to run out of ammo for the duration that's out. Picked up the health there just because why not? Quick hydration there, hope you don't mind. From here, we're approaching our boss. And I'm going to be draining the ammo down to about 50 or so. This boss is unfortunately very random. His spawn point is random, first and foremost. He either spawns to the left or right.
He was staying on screen.
And the copter can, as you can see, leave the screen. As long as he's off screen, we can't shoot him, and that's clearly not good. The longer he stays on screen, the better off we are. But it's just one of those things where we just have to hope for the best. It's strictly a good behavior fight. So it's a major reset point in like RTA runs or attempts, things like that. Stage 3 is a significant drop-off from the US version. This stage is actually fairly long, but in the JP edition of Mad City, we only have those 2 enemies, and then we walk forward right to our boss. There's a quick kill we have for this guy. We're going to jump kick him in the corner, jump kick back. That's where we get our armor. And I'm just going to club him to death. I think it takes 9 hits total, and that takes him right down. Really, really fast kill. In fact, I think that might be my best kill on this guy ever. The stage wasn't great because the enemies at the beginning were a bit, they acted up a bit. They get past you, they can cost you some time. But that was still a very good kill, because if he gets out of that, he gets to start grabbing you and throwing you around and cost you time. Not great. But it's a pretty consistent kill, but the execution on it is really, really tight. So for our driving stages, we have 2 back-to-back. I'm just going to refer to them as driving, which this is, and then driving also, which will be after this. Both stages are more or less exactly the same. It's significantly easier than what you see in the US version, where you actually have some really tight driving that can actually get you in a lot of trouble if you don't do it correctly. What we're doing here is, essentially we're just trying to avoid obstacles. The other cars are the obstacles we want to avoid the most. Speaking of which, this brown car you see here is actually Godfather Gordon. His is the most trolly of anything in the stage, because he doesn't leave the screen unless you do enough damage to him to make him run away. The reason I'm not bothering with that is because he can actually come back, so it just costs time, and there's some serious danger elements to doing that, because if a car backs up into you, you die, and you lose all your items from the platforming stages. So I would lose my stick, I would lose my armor. You don't want that. Lose time, because we have to respawn on this stage. Avoiding puddles and oil slicks are they're like the least threatening obstacles, but you still want to do it. It's only going to cost you fractions, but still enough. The planes that come in are fairly easy to deal with. If you can't snipe them with dynamite, you can generally just get out of their way by moving. The cans on the ground I tend to avoid unless they're the green one. The blue and the black one, I believe, add on to I think in lore it adds on to your fuel, but all it does is add on to the timer, and the timer counts down at the end of the stage, and just save frames to not pick those up. Any other cars that come in, I'm just going to shoot them. Had the knowledge of that. There's about 6 in-game seconds left. We'll move on. Reasonable stage. Driving also is, as per the name, also the same as the previous stage. Really not that much of a significant difference between the two. The music is different, and I actually love this track. This is one of my favorite songs in the game. These 2 stages are going to be really good to utilize for donation time, I think, after I explain the mechanics of how the vehicles work and how the obstacles work. But yeah, outside of that, for donation periods, this is perfect to utilize. So here we have Gordon, and I'll at least explain this. For Gordon, he actually shows up in a red car this time, which is more annoying than the previous stage, because in the previous stage, his car was brown, and that was a unique color to him. Whereas here, he has a red car, and that's actually not unique. There are actually other cars that can show up that are red that basically turn into a guessing game. There's also, I believe, a lot more helicopters in this stage, but we're not really concerned about those. I'm more concerned about the oil slicks than the helicopters. The missiles, nukes, we're gonna call them, they can drop on you, do damage, but they don't kill you, which I find insanely interesting because why would a car backing into you blow up your car and a nuke wouldn't? Just silly memes for a game like this. Jesus, great. And the green can refills health. There's no reason to take it or not to take it. It does nothing good or bad for you. It can't be treated as an obstacle. Whereas the gray one, we definitely want to stay away from.
Pretty much, just quit jumping, you know. It can be kind of hard to catch.
Donation time.
Dynamite just is such a strange.
It's weird. This game has a fair number of auto-scrollers as is, but the rail shooters, I feel there's at least a lot to talk about because of the mechanics involved, whereas this, there's quite a bit less. The real meat and potatoes is going to come to stage after this. I think that with the new discoveries, Stage 6 is arguably the most important stage in the game now. Stage 8 is pretty close. But Stage 6, I think, is where runs get made or broken. Any run I've had in a marathon where I've taken a death early was in that stage. So here's how this is going to work. On Bourbon Street, we're going to move up here to this window frame. You're going to see this enemy show up there on the right. But if we wiggle up and down like this, he's not going to be able to spawn, and he runs out of time, and then he just leaves the screen. We have about 5 or 6 segments where we have to do this. Couldn't successfully despawn this guy, unfortunately, so I lost a little bit of time there. We'll take him out.
Sucks.
There's one guy that's going to spawn on the right that I'm trying to prevent. You can see him there. The guy with the ball and chain, we can't despawn at all. They're just going to show up no matter what, so we have to just deal with them as they show up. This, I can't overstate how much time that this discovery saved on the run. It's a really, really big deal, and I believe the Tysonator was the first person I saw do it. It's pretty wild. Because if done correctly with the up and down movement, you can actually prevent all enemies in those given segments from spawning. There's also a way to prevent at least one of those guys from spawning off the balcony. I only did it by accident once and haven't data mined to quite figure out how it's done, but I can't see a reason why I won't be investigating it. Head to the bar, do another despawn, move on.
Or balcony.
This is one of the more frustrating segments here of this stage. These guys are really, really fast, and when you knock a weapon out of their hand, they like scramble to try to get a weapon back.
Thought he was dead.
Misjudged his health. If you hit an enemy as soon as they land on the ground, they don't take damage, which doesn't make any sense to me, but you better off just to avoid them. Another quick despawn in front of the Moon Konami.
Muscle guy, right?
Here we have what I refer to as the muscle guys. These guys have a pretty decent amount of health. The first one doesn't have anything preventing him from taking damage, whereas the second wave we're going to run to is going to have at least one with some body armor.
Alright, we got it.
The body armor guys are significant because you cannot use your stick on them. If you try to use your stick will break, and that's not good. You don't want to lose that. Take out that guy, and then here's the other guy with armor. We just walk up and jump kick him to death. And for those that may ask about the whip may seem like a very significant weapon to have because of its range, but the damage on it is very, very poor, so we never pick it up. The stick just does way more damage. But from there, we don't need the stick anymore, so I just got rid of it. Well, I didn't get rid of it, but I lost it, and I didn't try to get it back. Alright, so Stage 7. This is our second rail shooter. And in my opinion, this is the hardest stage in the game. Speedrun-wise, casually. There's a lot of weird little time saves that are still just waiting to be had in this stage that we haven't quite figured out. The way time drains in this stage really doesn't make a lot of sense. We're not sure if it has to do with the fact that enemies may stay on screen for a longer amount of time. We're not sure if it has to do with the fact that you don't kill them as quickly as you're supposed to. But either way, they're really annoying to have to deal with because you can see they can hide behind objects. They're hiding behind windows. They can be really hard to see. Some of them will pop out of a manhole, and those guys are a little bit easier to see, but it's still kind of just a surprise attack kind of thing. These segments are also pretty terrible because these guys just run around like crazy. They're actually very hard to catch, and it makes ammo kind of a high commodity in this stage. Unlike the first one, this is one where I actually do pick up extra ammo just to make sure that if I'm missing anything, I'm going to make sure that I still have ammo left over. It's just easy to miss your targets here. The accuracy is a lot more difficult just because of how fast they move. Last quick stopping section. The other dangerous thing about this stage, we haven't found a health pickup in this stage yet. There is a body armor pickup that we're going to get right after this segment, but without extra health, you have to be really cautious of how many hits you're taking. I generally don't like to go to the boss with less than 3 health. And even with 3 health, I've had some issues there. Through here, we don't have to kill any enemies because we're completely invincible.
Things are going pretty
Killing
well.
enemies doesn't speed the game up or anything. We're just making sure that we're just not going to take hits. We have to be really mindful of the timer on the body armor, too. There have definitely been cases where I've been sniped as soon as the body armor wears off, and it's really stupid. it's really not fun to put up with. It's still, that said, it's still a fun stage. It's just a very difficult one. Boss is pretty simple to break down. You have to fight 2 guys at once, one big, one small. The bigger guy is the easier one to take out first, and I think he's the more important one to take out because I believe his damage output is a bit higher. He has a gun. So it seems just more cautious to take him out. Little guy jumps around, throws knives. Cool thing about the knives is you can actually deflect those. If you shoot those with proper timing, you'll actually prevent them from coming in. Very good. Fire down our bullets, and that'll move us on. Definitely one of my better stages. Better attempts with that stage. So for stage 8, this was not an optimal stage 8, but it still was pretty good. First one we have to start off with is we're going to go ahead and try to nab this gun. Unfortunately, they snagged it back. Getting the gun is extremely important. We got it now, though. We're going to use the gun to take out all these enemies because it kills them fastest. Then we have these muscle guys coming up. Ideally, what we would like to have happen here is to lose our armor, and that's because that's important for stage 9. It's going to be a bit of a lag fest here. These guys are really tough to deal with because they're just throwing out so many hitboxes that you're just liable to get hit by. And you're trying to make sure that you're losing something that you have. We lost our armor, which is good. Did that to make sure my gun was equipped. Gonna move on to the dog trainer. Jump kick her once, literally shoot the other side, shoot her. Alright, let's go. That's stage 8. Could have been a bit better with the first section and better lag management in the second section, but that was still really solid. Find the sub notification there. Alright, stage 9. Quick little boss rush. First we fight Godfather Gordon. I have a quick movement manip I'm going to set up here. I tend to line up right there above the dark side of the red, where I keep going with these jump kicks. And it takes 9 to hit him, to kill him, but he can knock you away, and that can cost you some time. Thankfully, it didn't there. So for the twins, Rocky and Rocco, the blue one, if we don't have armor, he only takes 4 hits to take down, whereas normally he'd take 10. That's why we don't want to have armor. We get a much faster, much more efficient kill that way.
A little bit of time loss, but that's okay.
And then for the other one, 10 hits later.
Did that his world record too?
And that's going to move us on to Annabelle, and once we rescue her, that's going to be time. We'll play out the ending from there because, as I mentioned, a little bit of language after this. I got world record that day by a second, so I was pretty hype. But, yeah, this was the first NES game I learned in over a year, and I don't believe this version has ever been at a GDQ specifically. The US version was run back in 2013 by Feasel, and that one I think still gets a lot of attention just because people are well familiar with how difficult the game is. This game is also not easy, especially when you're trying to run it at this level. You have to there's a lot of dangerous stuff going on, particularly with the despawns in stage 6. If you miss those, you can be in a lot of trouble because those guys that will fight you in those segments do a lot of damage. Like they're actually a real pain to have to deal with. Same with the rail shooting stages, especially the second one. Missing some of the quick stuff in stage 8 is pretty important. But goal is we want to make sure we hit all that, and hopefully one day I'll have my own sub 15. But I hope this gets considered, and I think it would be great for an NES block. Hope you all enjoyed watching, and I will wish you a great day and a better tomorrow. Take care, everybody. This is Rock signing off.